you solemnly swear affirm the testimony presented will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir. If you'd please
How you
tell
doing?
the members of the jury your name
Officer Timothy Smith,
and where you employed.
Sanford Police Department,
How long have you been with the Sanford Police Department?
since 2008.
And your position there is what?
Police officer,
How long as a patrol officer? How long in patrol specifically?
7 years.
All right. Let me turn your attention to the evening of Sunday, February 26, 2012. Were you working that evening?
Yes, I was.
And were you in a standard patrol uniform as you are this afternoon?
Yes, I was.
How were you traveling?
In my marked Sanford police vehicle.
Were you riding alone or with anyone?
Alone.
All right. On that evening, did you respond to a dispatch at the retreat at Twin Lakes Complex?
Yes, I did.
And what was the approximate time of the dispatch?
Shortly after 7 p.m.
What was the nature of the dispatch?
Suspicious persons.
And where were you when you received the dispatch?
I was conducting an area patrol in the parking lot of Seminole Power Sports.
And where is that location relative to the retreat at Twin Lakes Complex?
Approximately a mile and a half.
All right. And about how long did it take you to respond to the complex?
Just a few minutes.
Did you receive an update to the suspicious person dispatch while you were en route?
Yes, I did.
What was the nature of the update?
Shots fired.
Were you given an address to respond to for the shots fired?
Yes, I was.
And what was that address, if you recall?
I believe it was 1231 Twin Trees.
And where were you when you received the update?
Entering the gates of the community.
It is a gated complex?
Yes,
All right. How did you get through the gate?
with the gate code.
How did you get the gate code?
Dispatch.
All right. You know, may I approach the witness and would you dim the lights?
Yes,
Sir, up on the screen is State's Exhibit 2. Let me give you a pointer just to press that. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Is that an aerial photograph that includes the retreat at Twin Lakes Complex?
Yes, it is.
Can you show the members of the jury first where the complex is with the laser pointer, if you would?
Right here.
Okay. And show them your location when you first received the dispatch.
Right here.
All right. And can you show them what route you took to get to the complex?
Sure. I would have gone down Reinhardt, northbound on Reinhardt to Oregon, down Oregon to the front entrance right here.
All right. Let me ask you to look at State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that to be a aerial photograph of the retreat at Twin Lakes Complex itself?
Yes, I do.
All right. Can you show the members of the jury where you went first when you entered the complex?
Through the front gates here, down through here. This is
Alright.
Twin Trees.
And I think you said you went first to 1231. Was there an update to the location after you got in the complex?
1231 was what I was originally given, so I arrived there first.
Can you show approximately where 1231 is?
Right in this area.
Okay. And where did you go?
From there, I was given an update from an address on Retreat View advising that the incident was taking place behind that location.
All right. And do you recall the address on Retreat View Circle that you were given?
(2821) Retreat View.
All right. So where did you go?
Down Twin Trees to Retreat View, and the address would have been over in this area.
All right. As you were en route to the 2821 address, did you stop anywhere and observe things or use your flashlight?
I did.
Or spotlight? Where was that?
Down here in between the sets of townhomes.
Okay, and what did you do at that location?
I used the spotlight on the patrol vehicle to shine it down that walkway
All right, did you get out of your car, or were you just sitting in the car and you can maneuver it from inside your car?
inside the car.
All right, and what did you see when you shined your spotlight down there?
Towards the end of the walkway, I saw at least one person standing outside.
Could you see anything more than that other than a person standing outside?
Not from where I was, no, sir.
All right, so did you continue around then on Retreat View Circle to the 2821 address?
Yes, sir.
Show the members of the jury then again about where you parked and what you did when you got out of your car.
I parked roughly in this area here.
And where did you go?
As I exited, I went around to the left to go in between the townhomes on the walkway.
All right, what were the lighting conditions like when you got in between and behind the townhomes?
It was dark.
Did you have a flashlight with you?
I did.
All right, and did you use that?
I did.
All right. What were the weather conditions like?
It was raining.
When you got behind the townhomes, did you see anyone?
I did.
How many people did you see?
I saw at least 2 people standing and then 1 person on the ground.
And show the members of the jury approximately where the 2 people were who were standing up.
Approximately in this area here.
All right, and the person on the ground, where was that person?
In the grassy area, in the grassy area to the left of the sidewalk.
Okay, and can you just shine your light in that approximate area?
Sure. Roughly in this area.
Very good. And you have indicated to the left of the sidewalk?
Yes,
All right. Did you shine your flashlight on the person who was on the ground?
I did.
And how was that person positioned?
Face down.
Could you see the person's hands?
No, I could not.
Did you later learn that person's name to be Trayvon Martin?
I did.
Did you approach Trayvon Martin at that time?
I did not.
Why not?
Because I was in contact with one of the gentlemen on the sidewalk.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 5. Does that give a general idea of the lighting conditions absent the flash of the light from the camera?
Yes, it does.
And State's Exhibit 77, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that an accurate depiction of Trayvon Martin's body when you shined your flashlight on it?
Yes.
All right. You said you came into contact with one of the people who was standing up. Did you later learn that person's name to be George Zimmerman?
I did.
And do you see George Zimmerman? Your Honor, could you turn the lights? Do you see George Zimmerman in court this afternoon?
I do.
Is he standing to my left?
Yes, he is.
All right. Your Honor, I ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Did the defendant appear to be having any trouble standing when you first made contact with him?
No, he did not.
Did he appear to be having any trouble balancing when you first made contact with him?
No, sir.
Did you say anything to the defendant when you made contact with him?
I did.
And what was that?
I asked him if he had seen what happened,
And what did he say?
that he did.
Did you ask him any further questions?
I did.
What was that?
I asked if the subject on the ground had been shot and if he had seen who shot him.
And what did the defendant? How did the defendant respond to that?
He said that he did and he was still armed. He's still armed.
When the defendant, when you asked him those questions, did he appear to have any trouble understanding what you were asking?
No.
When he responded to your questions, did you have any trouble understanding his responses?
No, sir.
When the defendant said that he was still armed, what did you do?
I unholstered my service weapon, at which point he complied with my commands and he was secured in handcuffs.
All right. And did he actually show you in some fashion where his gun was?
He did.
Did he have his hands in the air when he did that?
He did.
Where was the defendant's gun?
On his right hip.
And did you handcuff the defendant?
I did.
Do you recall whether or not you handcuffed him in front or in back?
In back.
All right. And why did you do that?
It's policy.
Did you remove the defendant's gun from his person?
Yes, I did.
Was it in a holster?
Yes, it was.
And when you removed the defendant's gun, did you actually take the gun or both the gun and the holster?
The gun and the holster.
And what did you do with the gun and the holster when you removed it? Where did you put it?
It was currently on me because I was away from my patrol vehicle.
All right, where did you put it on your person?
It was tucked in between my magazine pouch and my vest.
All right. Do you recall whether or not the defendant's holster was inside his pants or on the outside of his pants when he showed it to you?
I don't.
Could you see the defendant's gun when you approached him?
No.
Could you see the holster when you approached him?
No.
All right, what did you do with the defendant after you placed him in handcuffs?
He was seated in the rear of my patrol vehicle.
When you walked the defendant to your patrol car, did he appear to have any trouble walking?
No, sir.
Did other Sanford Police Department officers respond to the scene in short order after you?
Yes, sir.
You recall who the first officer was who responded after you?
I believe it was Officer Ayala.
And what did Officer Ayala do when he arrived at the scene?
He went to attend to Mr. Martin.
You recall any other officers going over to Trayvon Martin's body at that time?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Sergeant Raimondo.
Were you wearing gloves when you first made contact with the defendant and removed his holster and firearm from his person?
I was not.
And did you handle the firearm in any special way when you removed it?
No, sir.
Why not?
Why did I not handle it in a certain way?
Yes, sir.
There was just not enough time.
And did you secure or make safe the defendant's firearm at some point?
I did.
And how did you do that?
I removed the magazine from the firearm, and I locked the slide to the rear.
All right. And when you say you removed the magazine, we're talking about a semi-automatic pistol?
Correct.
All right. And when you pulled the slide back or locked it into position to the rear, was there a round in the chamber?
Yes, sir.
What happened to that round when you moved the slide?
It was ejected.
All right. Did you collect it?
I did.
And did you keep that round in all the rounds in the magazine together with the firearm?
Yes.
And where did you put them?
They were secured in my patrol vehicle until I could obtain a gun box.
And what's a gun box?
That's a cardboard box that we use to secure firearms as evidence.
Pretty much a standard box to secure any handgun?
Correct.
All right. And ultimately, what did you do with the ammunition, the magazine, the holster, and the firearm?
It was all submitted into evidence.
And did you at some point turn that box over to your wife, Diana Smith?
That's correct.
And she was also called to this scene?
Correct.
Now, first witness, let me show you states 154 already in evidence, and ask you to examine that. Do you recognize the contents of that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
All right, and what do you recognize that to be?
That would be the handgun, magazine, and holster that I removed
All right, and how do you recognize it to be the same?
because it's secured in the box with my handwriting on it.
All right, and does it have the case information, like you said, your handwriting, case number, et cetera?
Yes.
All right. And just for the jury's sake, will you hold up the, first of all, the firearm? And, Your Honor, that still has a gun lock in it. And the holster. And that, all of this you turned over to Diana Smith?
Correct.
She was the crime scene technician assigned to the case?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. Was fire rescue dispatched to that scene?
Yes, sir.
And did they respond to the scene?
Yes, sir.
Was fire rescue allowed to examine and treat the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And were you present for that?
Yes, sir.
What injuries did you observe on the defendant?
The defendant had a bloody nose. He had some lacerations to his head, as well as some contusions.
And at some point, while the defendant was in your patrol car, did another Sanford police officer take a picture of the defendant's face?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall who that was?
It's Officer Mike Wagner. Wagner?
All right. Were you aware at any point that a civilian had taken a photograph of the back of the defendant's head?
Not at that time, no.
All right. So is that something that if it happened, would have happened before you arrived?
Yes, sir.
You know, if we could dim the lights again. State's Exhibit 6, is that, again, another depiction of the lighting at the scene absent the flash from the camera?
Yes, sir.
And State's 34, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Is that the approximate area that you parked your patrol car on Retreat View Circle?
Yes, sir.
And State's 132, obviously a daylight photograph. Is that a photograph of the entrance, the front entrance of the Retreat at Twin Lakes?
Yes, it is.
And State's 133, do you recognize that to be a closer shot of the front entrance of the Retreat at Twin Lakes?
Yes.
And State's 134, is that now a shot going into the complex with the clubhouse in the right of the picture?
Yes.
State's 135, what is that?
It's the front of the clubhouse.
And State's 136, do you recognize that?
That would be the mailbox kiosk.
And State's 137, is that a close-up of the mailbox kiosk by the clubhouse?
Yes, sir.
All right. And State's 138, is that a depiction of the rear gate of the Retreat at Twin Lakes?
Yes, it is.
All right. Let me show you State's 79. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Is that, to your knowledge, the photograph that Officer Wagner took of the defendant when he was seated in your patrol car?
Yes, it is.
And State 76, does that depict the defendant's head or close to it, fair and accurate depiction of when you came into contact with him?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you recall what the defendant was wearing that evening?
Red and black jacket and blue jeans.
When you first made contact with the defendant out at the scene, was his jacket pushed up in any way?
I don't believe so.
Did you see any tears in his jacket?
No, sir.
What, if anything, did you notice about the condition of his jacket?
The back of it was wetter than the front of it, and it was also covered in grass.
Do you recall the condition of his pants?
Vaguely.
You said they were blue jeans.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else about the condition of his pants?
Again, the back was wetter than the front.
All right. After rescue had cleaned up the defendant and treated him, what did you do with him?
I transported him to the station
And what was the purpose of you taking the defendant to the Sanford Police Station?
to be interviewed by the Criminal Investigations Division.
And did you take the defendant directly there?
Yes, sir.
And about how long did that trip take?
Driving time from Retreat to the stations, roughly 15 minutes.
All right. While you were making the transport, did the defendant say anything else or anything at all about his injuries?
He stated that he felt like he was lightheaded.
And what did you do or say in response to that?
I forwarded him the opportunity to go to the hospital.
And how did you afford him the opportunity?
I asked him if he wanted to go to the hospital or if he wanted to go to the station and be reevaluated by FD.
And what did the defendant say when you offered him that?
He wasn't sure what he should do.
And so how was that resolved?
Ultimately, he decided that he didn't want to go
Didn't want to go where?
to the hospital.
All right. So did you take him to the station?
I did.
All right. At any time while you were en route with the defendant, did he lose consciousness or faint in any way?
No, sir.
At any time after arriving at the station, did the defendant complain of any injuries?
No, sir. None that was already additionally on there.
And where specifically did you park when you and the defendant arrived at the station?
In the Sally Port.
And is that the standard area that you would park when bringing someone to the station like that?
Yes.
When you removed the defendant from your car, did he appear to have any trouble balancing or walking?
No, sir.
All right. And was he still handcuffed?
Yes, sir.
Did the defendant walk with you inside the station?
Yes, sir.
And was he, again, still handcuffed?
Yes, sir.
Did he have any trouble walking throughout the station?
No, sir.
Are portions of the interior of the Sanford Police Station surveilled by video cameras?
Yes, sir.
And have you seen the video surveillance of the defendant arriving at the station and walking through the station that evening?
Yes, sir.
Does that video fairly and accurately depict the defendant's arrival and transport through the police station?
Yes, sir.
After the defendant got out of your police car, did you see any blood in your patrol car?
No, sir.
And where did you take the defendant specifically when you got to the station?
Into an interview room on the second floor.
All right. Your Honor, if I could have some assistance playing states, I believe it's 192. It's a composite.
192.
I might just have a moment with counsel.
Okay, we have to change paper. Is this a good time to take a short recess? Okay, why don't we take a 15-minute recess? Please be seated. Are we ready to bring the jury back in? Defense, ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring him in. Please be seated. You may continue.
Judge, I believe where we left off, we were going to publish states 192. And Officer Smith, as that is playing, is that a picture from the inside, the Sally Port area at the police station?
Yes, it is.
Is that your patrol car pulling in?
Yes, it is.
Is that you that just got out of the driver's seat?
Yes, sir.
And was that an accurate depiction of your interaction with the defendant as he got out of the patrol car and walked into the station?
Yes, it was.
All right. Was that just you and the defendant walking through one of the interior doors?
Yes, sir.
And again, is that just you and the defendant walking through another portion of the police station?
Yes, sir.
All right. You know, that's all we need for the lights. Thank you. All right. Did you take the defendant to an interview room?
Yes, sir.
And was anyone in the interview room when you placed the defendant in there?
No, sir.
Did you uncuff the defendant when you placed him in the interview room?
Yes, I did.
Did you offer him something to drink?
I did.
Did you stay in that room with the defendant?
No, sir.
Where did you go?
The room's monitored by one-way glass, so I went around to the other side of the glass.
All right. And were you able to see the defendant from the other side of the glass?
Yes, sir.
Did you watch the defendant until someone arrived
Yes,
to
sir.
speak with him?
Yes, sir.
And about how long was that?
30 to 40 minutes.
All right. At any time while you were watching the defendant for 30 to 40 minutes through the one-way glass, did he lose consciousness?
No, sir.
Did he appear to have any physical problems of any kind, falling out of the chair, anything like that?
No, sir.
Did he do anything that caused you concern about his health during that 30 to 40 minute period?
No, sir.
And who was it who arrived to interview the defendant?
I believe it was Investigator Singleton.
Did you participate in that interview?
No, sir, I did not.
And where were you when Detective Singleton was speaking with the defendant?
Back on the other side of the one-way glass.
All right. Could you hear what they were saying?
Not enough. You can hear people talking, but it's not enough to make out.
You can't make out what they're saying?
Correct.
All right. Thank you, sir. Judge, that's all I have.
Thank you, Cross.
Yes, I'm not. Afternoon, officer. How you doing?
Good, how are you, sir?
Thanks for being here today. How long have you been an officer?
Since 2005,
Okay. And what was your training? What did you do to become an officer?
I attended the Law Enforcement Academy.
Okay. How long a course is that?
That's just shy of 700 hours.
In addition, have you taken any other courses like in community college or anything along the way or even before?
I have attended Seminole State College, yes.
That's just down the street?
Yes, sir.
What type of courses did you take?
It's general education courses.
Okay. Any focus on criminal justice, your chosen career?
Not at Seminole State, no, sir.
Okay. How long did you want to be a cop before you became one?
Since I was little.
Okay. Sort of a life goal for you then?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
I enjoy helping and educating.
Okay. The traditional one, I guess it's not on all police cars, but it's on a lot of them, protect and serve.
Yes, sir.
Is that sort of a goal of yours then as a police officer?
Yes, sir.
Feel that's a pretty noble goal?
Yes, sir.
Do you enjoy it?
Yes, sir.
Can't enjoy it quite as much when you get a shots fired call, though, can you? It's got
No,
to be
sir.
a little concerning, right?
Yes, sir.
So you're on the radio, I think you testified about the map, and you get a call about a disturbance first, is that correct?
Suspicious person.
That's right. At some point it got upgraded, did it not,
Yes, sir, it did.
to shots fired?
Yes, sir.
What do you then do once you have a shots fired event?
You tend to wait for a little bit more additional information, but it becomes more of an officer safety issue.
At that point, you're officer safety, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you came in, did the circle, and actually, almost coincidentally, I guess, you were able to shine a light down that entire sort of alleyway towards where this event actually occurred, right?
Yes, sir.
And noticed at least one person towards the end?
Yes, sir.
Could you even tell who it was at that point?
No, sir.
So you pull up your car and then get out, and you take out. How do you equip yourself as you're going out of your car to go to that back alleyway?
Due to the lighting, I grabbed a flashlight.
Okay. I talked to another officer before you, and he said that his gun actually has a flashlight on it. Was that the way yours was set up, or
Yes, my gun does have a flashlight on it.
was that what you used? No.
No, sir, I used an actual standard flashlight.
So when you first came around that corner heading over towards the scene, did you know that was the scene where the shooting occurred?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. So when you first came up on the scene, you had your flashlight out?
Yes, sir.
Had you taken out your service revolver yet?
Not at that point, no, sir.
Okay. Tell me what you first see when you come on scene.
I saw Mr. Zimmerman standing on the sidewalk. There may have been somebody out there with him, and I saw Trayvon laying in the grass.
Okay. And when you say sidewalk, there was a walkway that you sort of came down from your car, correct?
Correct. The
And
sidewalk
then
makes a T.
There's a T intersection.
Right.
As you came around that corner, can you sort of orient us to where near the T or how far down that T Mr. Zimmerman was?
If you came around the side of the building to the top of the T, it was approximately 30 feet.
30 feet from the T intersection?
Correct.
Okay. Very close by to where Trayvon Martin's body was, right?
Yes, sir.
Within feet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was he doing?
Who?
Mr. Zimmerman.
He was standing on the sidewalk.
Okay. Did he look towards you as you were coming towards him?
Yes.
Do you remember at that point whether or not there was anybody else present?
There may have been, but I'm not 100% certain.
Okay. And flashlight on Mr. Zimmerman at that point?
Yes, sir.
And could you tell that he was wearing the clothes that we've talked about, the orange or red jacket?
Yes, sir.
At that point, could you see the injuries to his nose when you first had the flashlight on him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were they similar as to the picture that we've seen a little while ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Even more with it actual bleeding at that point, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Okay. And his eyes were watered?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Both eyes, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did you first say to him?
I asked him if he had seen what happened.
And his response?
Yes.
Did that seem like an appropriate response? Anything wrong with the way he answered you?
No, sir.
Next, what did you ask him?
If he had seen if the young man had been shot, and if he had seen who shot him.
And how did he respond?
That he did, and that he was still armed.
Okay. At that point, what's your response to find out that somebody involved in a shooting is right there in front of you, armed?
At that point is when I unholstered my service weapon.
And take it out?
Correct.
That's protocol, is it not?
Correct.
Again, it's officer safety is your number one
Right.
charge, because without that, you can't do anything else.
Correct.
Can't help anyone else.
Correct.
Okay. Pointed at him?
Yes, sir.
And again, that's appropriate, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not point it at him because of any immediate threat that he posed to you, correct? He didn't challenge you in any way, did he?
No, sir.
Matter of fact, he was completely cooperative, was he not?
Yes, sir.
But protocol is you arm yourself and make sure that you have it on him to take care of the situation.
Yes, sir.
And what did you next ask him?
As he was telling me that he had shot him and he was still armed, was when he kind of leaned over to expose the firearm.
So if I were to do that then for just a moment, tell me, I could either have you do it, I'm going to try, but the gun was on his right hip, I think you testified?
Correct.
So this jacket is longer than the one he was wearing, right?
Yes, sir.
But if we flipped it up sort of a silly way, he went like this,
Yes, sir.
and just by this movement was able to do enough.
The hands going up and the leaning over.
Oh, okay, so sort of like that?
Right.
And in just doing that movement, that was enough of a movement where the gun was exposed, correct?
Correct.
The jacket didn't cover the gun by more than a few inches, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So any movement up of the jacket, even that small movement that he did by leaning over, exposed the gun, right?
Correct.
And had the jacket been ridden up in any form or fashion, the gun would have been exposed, right?
I would imagine so, yes.
So, do you remember if he had a cell phone in his hand or not?
I don't recall.
Okay. In any case, he showed you his gun, kept his hands in the air, didn't he?
Correct.
That's what you told him to do?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you do at that point now that you have a flashlight, a gun, and you see another gun?
I asked Mr. Zimmerman to put his hands on top of his head, interlock his fingers,
Okay.
at which point I reholstered, made contact, hands-on contact with Mr. Zimmerman and placed him in handcuffs.
Okay. You lead the gun until you get his hands secured,
Yes, sir.
and that's protocol as well?
That's choice.
Okay. He didn't resist in any way, did he?
No, sir.
And I guess that not resisting is you have him like this, interlocked, correct?
Correct.
Then you would either turn him around or go behind him?
To handcuff him?
Yeah,
I was behind him.
right. Take one arm, get it back, take
Correct.
the other arm. You've, of course, been in, I would imagine, hundreds of situations having to handcuff people, correct?
Yes, sir.
And most people, I'll let you answer it. What percentage of people at least offer some resistance to you when you're trying to get their arms behind their back?
I would object to the relevance of anyone else.
Just
Have you had other people resist getting their arms behind the back?
Same objection, Your Honor, relevance.
At this point, I don't want to speak to you.
Well, then
Response.
please approach.
I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
Let me rephrase it. Did Mr. Zimmerman to secure his firearm?
Yes, sir.
And I think a point was made that at that point, your focus, even more so than other people involved, is to secure the firearm, correct?
Correct.
And though in a perfect world you might have been able to put on gloves, you didn't have the time then, you just grabbed the gun, and I think you said you put it between one of your clips and your vest?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was necessitated by the circumstances, wasn't it?
That is correct.
That was, again, primary goal number one at that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. At that point, as your first contact to Mr. Zimmerman, did he seem angry?
No, sir.
Did he seem frustrated?
No, sir.
Did he seem spiteful of anything that was going on?
No, sir.
Any ill will or hatred at all that you saw him exude as you first saw him literally moments after the event?
No, sir.
Any concern about him at all except for his injuries?
No, sir.
Even though he had that obvious injury to his nose, had you seen the injuries to the back of his head yet?
While I was securing him, yes, I was able
So
to see that.
as you got behind him, you could see the blood dripping down the back of his head?
Correct.
So even with those injuries, did he seem agitated?
No, sir.
There has been testimony that he was seemingly calm. Did he come across that way to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Having just gone through what he went through, and now that you know, having just shot somebody, did his behavior to you just seem strange?
No, sir.
Just usual?
I wouldn't say usual.
Okay. Not, well, was it particularly unusual,
No, sir.
even for those circumstances?
No, sir.
You didn't think that didn't come across to you as being cavalier, did he?
No, sir.
Or just uncaring?
No, sir.
Fairly appropriate for what you now know he had just gone through?
Correct.
So, you secure the gun,
Yes, sir.
and then what's the next thing that you do?
I had Mr. Zimmerman have a seat in the rear of my patrol car.
Okay. Let's talk about sort of the walk over. My understanding, again from other testimony, is that another officer came on scene fairly quickly behind you. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
Do you recall who it was?
Officer Ayala.
Ayala? And you had control of Mr. Zimmerman, and that became your now task, correct?
Correct.
And was it true that Officer Ayala took over the situation of dealing with the other person, now known as Mr. Martin?
That is correct.
Okay. And as you were going, anything else that you recall Mrs. Zimmerman saying to you at the scene before you started walking towards the car?
Not before, no, sir.
Okay. As you were walking towards the car, didn't he utter something to you, sort of voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say?
He stated to me that he was yelling for help and that nobody would come help him.
And how long after you first saw him did that happen? Within a minute?
It was a few minutes.
Okay. As long as it took to do what we just talked about?
Correct.
And then, because as soon as you had him cuffed, you secured the gun,
Right.
Turned him around and walked him towards your car.
Correct.
The car was 30 yards away,
Approximately.
and it was during that walk, actually almost immediately upon walking towards the car, that he uttered that to you, right?
It wasn't very long after, no, sir.
Okay. He actually said that to you twice, didn't he?
Correct.
Second time was after you got to the car?
That's correct.
Tell me how he said that. Was it as... tell me how he said that.
It was almost confusion. Sort of.
I kept... Well, tell me.
That's basically what it was. Sort of a confused look on his face.
Like he didn't know why, after screaming for help, nobody would come help him?
Correct.
Object to that as calling for speculation.
I'll rephrase it, Your Honor.
Thank you.
It came across to you as though he was confused.
That's correct.
You had testified a little while ago about Mr. Zimmerman's condition. We've talked about his injuries, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you also said that the back, particularly the back of his jacket, was wet.
Yes, sir.
Of course, it was raining on and off that evening, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Was the back noticeably more wet than the rest of his body?
Yes, sir.
As though he had been laying in grass on his back?
That's correct.
And he actually also had pieces of grass on his back as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell with blue jeans that the back of his blue jeans were wet as well, or could
It
you
appeared to be a little bit darker.
a little bit darker than the front,
Correct.
evidencing to you what in the darkness,
That he had been laying on his back.
and that his jeans were wet as well on the back?
Correct.
So you get him to the car, which my understanding is that you stayed with him the entire time?
I did.
Again, that's your charge at that point, correct?
Correct.
So you were there when the medical personnel came and treated him?
I was.
Did he say anything, well, did he say anything about the facts of the case to the medical personnel?
No, sir.
When you first arrested him, when you first detained him, did he ask for a lawyer?
No, sir.
As far as you know, all the time that you were with him, did he ever ask for a lawyer?
No, sir.
So you have him in the car, medical personnel sort of deal with him and finish with him, correct?
Correct.
Were you waiting for them to finish so that you could continue on with what you had to do, which at that point became transporting him?
Correct.
Okay. So that was mainly your reason for waiting around. Let them finish and then continue on?
Yeah, I have to wait if they decide if they're going to transport or not.
And how was that decision accomplished?
Through the paramedics.
And do you know, were you there? Or listening?
I could overhear bits and pieces. I was
Okay.
kind of pushed back because there was a crowd around the doorway of the car.
Including the paramedics?
It was a crowd of paramedics.
Gotcha. Mrs. Zimmerman still in the backseat of your car
Correct.
with his legs out on the ground,
That's correct.
and then the paramedics attending to him.
Correct.
Do you know which one made the decision to transport or not?
Which paramedic? I do not.
Okay. But it seems that the decision to release him back to you was what was done.
Yes.
Correct? Did you have any impact on that? Like, I want to get him to the station. Are we done here? What's going on?
No, sir.
Okay, left that in their hands.
Yes, sir.
So he's then released to you
Correct.
and put him in the back seat of the car. At some point, did you actually have to help him get up out of the car for the rest of the examination, where you sort of lifted him up? He was still, I'm sorry, let me start. He was still cuffed in the back seat of the car, correct?
Correct.
And as he was being treated by medical personnel, you still had to have him cuffed.
He was still handcuffed, yes.
At that point, all you know is that he's acknowledged having shot somebody,
Correct.
and you're not going to release somebody under those circumstances just yet.
Correct.
Okay. So when the medical personnel wanted him lifted up to check the rest of him, did you help lift him up?
No, sir.
Do you know if another officer did?
I don't recall.
Do you know how it happened with the medical personnel? If you were
It may have
watching?
been two of the paramedics lifted him up.
Okay. Do you remember that happening?
I remember him standing up, but I don't remember who.
Okay.
It wasn't me.
Anyway, that's finished. He's now in the backseat of the car, still cuffed,
Correct.
and you're taking him back to his Sanford Police Department.
That's correct.
And tell me again of the conversation about feeling lightheaded.
He said that he felt
To figure out what to do with him now that he might have to go to the hospital.
I had called the supervisor that was on scene,
All right. Do you recall who that was?
Sergeant McCoy.
And tell me of the conversation with Sergeant McCoy.
I explained to her the comment that he had made about feeling lightheaded. She advised me if he wants to go to the hospital, we'll transport him to the hospital. If not, we'll take him to the station.
Okay. Did you have a discussion with Mr. Zimmerman that though you could transport him to the hospital, the expenses of that would be on his shoulders?
I don't recall that, no, sir.
They would, in fact, though, you would not, SPD doesn't cover expenses if he goes to the hospital, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then we've learned, we've seen the pictures. I'm not going to put them back up right now, but there was one picture after Mrs. Zimmerman had been cleaned up, correct?
Correct.
Those pictures were taken after midnight that night, were they not?
I don't know what time they were taken, but it was after.
After the initial interview with Detective Singleton?
Correct.
Do you know who cleaned him up at SPD?
While at the station, he was given a bottle of water and some tissues.
Oh, to sort of clean himself off?
Correct.
Okay. And is that then how it went from the first picture we saw, the one with him with the blood all over him, to the one where the blood is gone?
He was cleaned up some by the fire department on scene, and then while he was at the station.
Okay. Was there ever a time at Sanford Police Department where there was any other videotaping of him that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Was there ever a time where he needed any physical assistance from you or whatever in helping, leaning against a wall or doing anything like that?
No, sir.
And you watched him for about 30, I think you said, 30 or 40 minutes before the investigator came in to talk to him, right?
Correct.
To question him about what had happened?
Yes, sir.
And did you say that you watched that interrogation or interview?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was he cooperative?
He appeared to be so.
Okay. Did he ever ask for a lawyer during that event?
I don't know.
Had he asked for one, the interview would have stopped, correct?
Yes, sir.
I might just have a moment, Your Honor. Thanks very much for the time. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Just briefly, thank you, Judge. Officer Smith, you were asked if when you came into contact with the defendant, he seemed to be angry or frustrated, and you said that he did not.
Correct.
Do you know what was going on in his head when he pulled the trigger for the bullet that killed Trayvon Martin?
Let me interrupt with an objection. I think that's going to be speculation, and I would object to that, Your Honor.
Okay, sustained is the speculation.
Do you know what he was thinking before you arrived?
Your Honor,
Well, that's a yes or
similarly,
no. That would, if the answer is yes, it calls for speculation.
if the answer is no, I would suggest it's not relevant.
Okay, sustained.
You were asked about whether or not his firearm was visible when he exposed it to you like this,
Yes.
and you had a flashlight on him.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if his firearm was visible when he was out at the location where Trayvon Martin's body was in that lighting?
That I don't know.
You said at the station you offered the defendant some tissues, like Kleenex,
Yes, sir.
to clean himself.
Yes, sir.
Did anybody else clean him at the station?
Not that I saw.
Could you help me with one photograph? Judge, I'd like to publish one more photograph, if I could. Officer Smith, I'm showing you States 46. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the way the defendant appeared when he was at the police station after he had been cleaned up?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that was taken on the evening of the 26th, or perhaps just after midnight into the 27th?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Judge, that's all I have.
A very brief follow-up. I think it was just a mistake, but I want to clear it up. Mr. Guy, when he suggested his maneuvering for the picture, actually lifted up his left arm. You had testified, however, pretty certainly that the gun was on his right side, correct?
Correct.
And that he lifted up his right arm.
Correct.
So you have no question in your mind whatsoever, do you, that the gun was located on his right hip?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mr. Guy's putting it up his left arm was just a mistake as far as you can tell?
Correct.
Thanks, nothing further.
And any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may Officer Smith be excused?
He may.
Thank you very much. You're excused. Call your next witness.